Dreamless sleep. You take a journey into the unmanifested every night when you enter the phase of deep, dreamless sleep. You merge with the source. You draw from it the vital energy that sustains you for a while you return to the manifested, the world of separate forms. This energy is much more vital than food. Man does not live by bread alone, but in dreamless sleep, you don't go into it consciously. Although the bodily functions are still operating, you no longer exist in that state. Can you imagine what it would be like to go into dreamless sleep with full consciousness? It is impossible to imagine it because that state has no content. The unmanifested does not liberate you until you enter it consciously. That's why Jesus did not say the truth will make you free, but rather you will know the truth and the truth will make you free. This is not a conceptual truth. It is the truth of eternal life beyond form, which is known directly or not at all. But don't attempt to stay conscious in dreamless sleep. It is highly unlikely that you will succeed. At most, you will remain conscious during the dream phase, but not beyond that. This is called lucid dreaming, which may be interesting and fascinating, but it is not liberating. So use your inner body as a portal through which you enter the unmanifested and keep that portal open so that you stay connected with the source at all times. It makes no difference. As far as the inner body is concerned, whether your outer physical body is old or young, frail or strong, the inner body is timeless. If you are not able to feel the inner body, use one of the other portals, although ultimately they are all one. Some I have spoken about at length already, but I'll mention them again briefly here. So what happens in a state of a dreamless sleep is that you get to that connection with the source, but that is a very different state. You know that it's always said that once you have a good sleep, you are actually charged. And it's also said that even if you have a sleep, there are times when you have a sleep, you go to sleep, but somehow you don't get up very charged. You're very, even when you get up after say 8 hours of sleep, you're still very drained out. That's because in a state of dreamless sleep. Now, dreamless is where there is no dreams. See, at the end of the day, dream is nothing but a play of what is going on in your conscious mind. So if you come to relate to a lot of your dreams, which you probably remember or probably you don't remember, is whatever you've been thinking throughout the day. Generally, वहीं से dreams निकल के आते हैं. And dreams में कहीं ना कहीं, you are talking about your innate, your probably the inner repressions you have. So you repress something inside of you and it gets stored. That also comes out in your dream. So dreamless state. Now, dreamless state is where there is nothing to regress, there's nothing to process, and you are just in your sleep enjoying. That is where the connection with the source, and that is where the charge to the body is coming. Now, it's said that, all children below the age of 4, 5, or maximum up to 7 are quite conscious beings Their consciousness is very, very strong. They're all, because in that case, their critical mind has, their cognition has not been developed. और अगर आप देखोगे in the start, a small kid less than a year sleeps 16 to 18 hours a day. And he's constantly making that connection with that source and recharging himself. But बच्चों को भी वो ड्रीम आते हैं जब वो सोते सोते उठ के रोना शुरू कर देते हैं. So it's not that the entire dream sleep is of a dreamless state, but there are portions of it. So the more you are having a relaxed sleep in which you don't remember your dreams, or even if you had a dream, they were very momentary and glimpsy, and you have no recall, that is where you are in a state of dreamless sleep. So there's nothing to regress or repress, and there's nothing to process. So that means true relaxation, true connection with the source, and true healing is possible. Other portals. The now can be seen as the main portal. It is an essential aspect of every other portal, including the inner body. You can be in your inner body without being intensely present in the now. Time and the manifest state are as inextricably linked as are the timeless now and the unmanifested. When you dissolve psychological time through intense present moment awareness, you become conscious of the unmanifested both directly and indirectly. Directly, you feel it as the radiance and power of your conscious presence. No content, just presence. Indirectly, you are aware of the unmanifested in and through the sensory realm. In other words, you feel the God essence in every creature, every flower, every stone, and you realize all that is holy. This is why Jesus, speakingly entirely from his essence or Christ identity, says in the Gospel of Thomas, split a piece of wood, I am there. Lift up a stone and you'll find me there. Another portal into the unmanifested is created through the cessation of thinking. This can start with a very simple thing, such as taking one conscious breath or looking into in a state of intense alertness at a flower, so that there is no mental commentary running at the same time. There are many ways to create a gap in the incessant stream of thought. This is what meditation is all about. Thought is part of the realm of the manifested. Continuous mind activity keeps you imprisoned in the world of form and becomes an opaque screen that prevents you from becoming conscious of the unmanifested, conscious of the formless and timeless. God essence in yourself and in all things and all creatures. When you are intensely present, you don't need to be concerned about the cessation of thinking. Of course, because the mind then stops automatically. That's why I said the now is an essential aspect of every other portal. Surrender. The letting go of mental emotional resistance to what is also becomes a portal into the unmanifested. The reason for this is simple. Inner resistance cuts you off from other people, from yourself, from the world around you. It strengthens the feeling of separateness on which the ego depends for its survival. The stronger the feeling of separateness, the more you are bound to the manifested, to the world of separate forms. The more you are bound to the world of form, the harder and more impenetrable your form identity becomes. The portal is closed and you are cut off from the inner dimension, the dimension of depth. In the state of surrender, your form identity softens and becomes somewhat transparent, as if it were, so the unmanifested can shine through it. It's up to you to open a portal in your life that gives you conscious access to the unmanifested. Get in touch with the energy field of the inner body. Be intensely present. Disidentify from the mind. Surrender to what is. These are all portals you can use, but you only need to use one. So he's talking about mainly two basic portals. One is being in the now, where you are in, the present moment, and you are part of that formless unmanifested, rather than being part of the manifested and the form universe which we currently live in our day to day. It's the way things are in our normal world. So being intensely present in the now, in the moment, that's one of the portals to get connected with the inner body. And the other is the surrender, is where you accept things as they are, rather than have your ifs and buts and whys. Accepting it as it is, rather than, questioning it, why this, why not this, why me, why not me, like that. So, that is accepting what is as it is. That's true surrender. So, so if something that is meant to be is meant to be, and you accept it the way it is, no questions. Why this, why not this? You might have some questions for overall understanding. That's separate. That's an inquisitive mind. But accepting the decision of what is, that is surrender. So it's not कि true surrender में आप ये नहीं सोच सकते या ये नहीं कर सकते ये क्यों हुआ कैसे हुआ. Always work with your mind in the positive manner, where we try to understand things. But acceptance of what is and acceptance of whatever is happening as this is the best that is for you, that is true surrender. And that is where you are living in God's will, rather than being bothered about your own free will. कि मेरे हिसाब से ऐसे होना चाहिए था, but वो नहीं हुआ. So that means God wanted it, or the Almighty, or the universe, or whatever energy, whatever name you want to call it, wanted it that way. Okay. I accept it as it is, because probably this is the best for me. Surely, love must also be one of those portals. No, it isn't. As soon as one of the portals is open, love is present in you as the feeling realization of oneness. Love isn't a portal. If what comes through the portal into this world, as long as you are completely trapped in your form identity, there can be no love. Your task is not to search for love, but to find a portal through which love can enter. Silence. Are there any other portals apart from those you just mentioned? Yes, there are. The unmanifested is not separate from the manifested. It pervades this world, but it is so well disguised that almost everybody misses it completely. If you know where to look, you'll find it everywhere. A portal opens up every moment. Do you hear that dog barking in the distance, or that car passing by? Listen carefully. Can you feel the presence of the unmanifested in that? You can't. Look for it in the silence out of which the sounds come and into which they return. Pay more attention to the silence than to the sounds. Paying attention to outer silence creates inner silence. The mind becomes still, a portal is opening up. Every sound is born out of silence, dies back into silence, and during its lifespan is surrounded by silence. Silence enables the sound to be. It is an intrinsic but unmanifested part of every sound, every musical note, every song, every word. The unmanifested is present in this world as silence. This is why it has been said that nothing is this world is so like God as silence. All you have to do is pay attention to it. Even during a conversation, become conscious of the gaps between words, the brief silent intervals between sentences. As you do that, the dimension of stillness grows within you. You cannot pay attention to silence without simultaneously becoming still within. Silence without stillness within. You have entered the unmanifested space. Just as no sound can exist without silence, nothing can exist without nothing, without the empty space that enables it to be. Every physical object or body has come out of nothing, is surrounded by nothing, and will eventually return to nothing. Not only that, but even inside every physical body, there is far more nothing than something. Physicists tell us that the solidity of matter is an illusion. Even seemingly solid matter, including your physical body, is nearly 100% empty space. So vast are the distances between the atoms compared to their size. What is more, even inside every atom, there is mostly empty space. What is left is more like a vibrational frequency that particles of solid matter, more like a musical note. Buddhists have known that for over 2500 years. Form is emptiness, emptiness is form, states the Heart Sutra, one of the best known ancient Buddhist texts. The essence of all things is emptiness. The unmanifested is not only present in this world as silence, it also pervades the entire physical universe as space from within and without. This is just as easy to miss as silence. Everybody pays attention to the things in space, but who pays attention to space itself? So another of the verticals is one is silence. So whenever there is a sound, and after that sound, there is that complete silence. Try to make your concentration on that silence. उस टाइम पे माइंड में थॉट्स आएंगे, माइंड में कुछ आएगा, let them all flow. But once you have that concentration clearly on that silence, your connection to your inner body, your connection to your true source, and your connection in your journey within gets more stronger. And again, is with the space. I always wondered, whenever you go out in the open, there is so much of space. खाली है, इसमें क्या है? Everything is energy. So even if there is you know, when in this chapter, in this paragraph, he's talking about even in our entire things, we are quite empty within. Because अगर हम वो atoms के structure देखते हैं, protons पे जाते हैं, neutrons पे जाते हैं, you know, going down to the electrons, which are cannot be captured also by microscope, so it looks like an empty space. So there is emptiness within. It is only and only the prana inside through the breath that gives it life. Otherwise सब खाली है. So getting to know and getting to be in that space, you know, when it says form is emptiness and emptiness is form. I don't know if you remember, I shared this story or a message on the group of Rumi. Everything, you know, there's even in the flute, there is nothing which is alive. It is only what is goes in is alive. So even inside our own body, there's nothing that is alive. It's only the prana, the chi, or the vital force, or the life force energy, whatever name you want to call it. When that goes in, everything gets alive. It's not alive in its own. अगर वो प्राणा वो ची नहीं आता सांस में, so it's a normal dead body because there's no prana in it. So body में कुछ नहीं है. It's only and only what goes inside this body in terms of prana, chi, life force, vital force, that gets everything. So, you know, when you're talking about connecting to the silence, connect to that inner space which is empty within. That is one of the most effective ways of going inside of you. You know, it's a journey within. So connect with that space. बिकॉज इस पूरे प्रोसेस में ना सबसे पहले माइंड ही गेम खेलना शुरू करता है. क्या देखी जा रहा है, तेरे को क्या समझ नहीं आ रही है. सो इज गोइंग टू प्ले अ लॉट ऑफ गेम्स. सो या, practicing to still the mind is very important first. Then these things, yes, they make a lot of sense. And when you start practicing, you will actually realize that you know, and you will get more closer to that link with that source within. So yeah, please work on your mind, then you can work on these things. Because अगर वो mind still नहीं हुआ तो वो आपको अंदर नहीं जाने देगा, वो उलझा के रखेगा.
Arjun, just now when you talked about the emptiness inside, what I suddenly remembered was the book that you had shared with me about Dr. Bruce Lipton's Biology of Belief, where he also uh, 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 broke the molecules, atoms of our bodies and tissues down to the very basic. There was nothing there, no physical form, but vibrational energy. So there was one part in the book where it said like, it's imagine that you're actually reading the book and then the book disappears because it's just vibrating.
It's all the manifested form, na?
Yeah.
It's just not because हमें ये दिख रहा है. So I'm like, if you talk about color therapy, now if I say this is red, so this is all the colors but red, because it's absorbing all but only repelling red. So that's why it's red. So it's a similar way of, you know, being empty within and empty without. So it makes a lot of sense when we compare it with colors, or we compare it with a lot of other things as well. So yeah, getting to the deep and the basics and the depth of it is actually just a manifested form. इसीलिए हमें वो you know नजर आता है, and you know it's there. That's why, you know, a lot of Hindu mythologies, or if you would talk about old books, they say संसार एक माया है, एक मिथ्या है. So what is that? That's again referring to the same form. It's an illusion. So when we are talking about, see, because आज हम जो हैं, हमारा एक फॉर्म है इधर, हमारे को एक बॉडी दी गई है जो दिखती है. So that form is evident, but then that is a uniform of the form. Can we see the true form? No. That is the unmanifested, that is the formless. उस formless को इस physical world में एक यूनिफॉर्म दी गई है. बट अगर हम उस फिजिकल वर्ल्ड से यू वांट टू गो बैक एंड कनेक्ट विद द मेटाफिजिकल वर्ल्ड, there is no form, there is no uniform there. So the form is required only in the manifested world. Only on this planet Earth this is required, because then you need to experience things, because you you know the soul is so subtle that it cannot experience anything on its own. वो तो उड़ जाएगा. So it needs that form, that manifested form, to experience things. But in its true self, it is totally unmanifested, it is totally formless. You seem to be implying that emptiness or nothing is not just nothing, that there is some mysterious quality to it. What is this nothing? You cannot ask such a question. Your mind is trying to make nothing into something. The moment you make it into something, you have missed it. Nothing, space, is the appearance of the unmanifested as an externalized phenomena in a sense perceived world. That's about as much as one can say about it. And even that is a kind of paradox. It cannot become an object of knowledge. You cannot do a PhD on nothing. When scientists study space, they usually make it into something and thereby miss its essence entirely. Not surprisingly, the latest theory is that space isn't empty at all, that it is filled with some substance. Once you have a theory, it's not too hard to find evidence to substantiate, at least until some other theory comes along. Nothing can only become a portal into the unmanifested for you if you don't try to grasp or understand it. Isn't that what we are doing here? Not at all. I am giving you pointers to show you how you can bring the dimension of the unmanifested into your life. We are not trying to understand this. There is nothing to understand. Space has no existence. To exist literally means to stand out. You cannot understand space because it doesn't stand out. Although in itself it has no existence, it enables everything else to exist. Silence has no existence either, nor does the unmanifested. So, what happens if you withdraw attention from the objects in space and become aware of space itself? What is the essence of this room? The furniture, pictures, and so on are in the room, but they are not the room. The floor, walls, and ceiling define the boundary of the room, but they are not the room either. So, what is the essence of the room? Space, of course, empty space. There would be no room without it. Since space is nothing, we can say that what is not there is more important than what is there. So become aware of the space that is all around you. Don't think about it, feel it as if it were. Pay attention to nothing. As you do that, a shift in consciousness takes place inside you. And here is why. The inner equivalent to objects in space, such as furniture, walls, and so on, are your mind objects, thoughts, emotions, and the objects of the senses. And the inner equivalent of space is the consciousness that enables your mind objects to be just as space allows all things to be. So if you withdraw attention from things, objects in space, you automatically withdraw attention from your mind objects as well. In other words, you cannot think and be aware of space or of silence for that matter. By becoming aware of the empty space around you, you simultaneously become aware of the space of no mind, of pure consciousness, the unmanifested. This is how the contemplation of space can become a portal for you. Space and silence are two aspects of the same thing, the same nothing. They are an externalization of inner space and inner silence, which is stillness, the infinitely creative womb of all existence. Most humans are completely unconscious of this dimension. There is no inner space, no stillness. They are out of balance. In other words, they know the world or think they do, but they don't know God. They identify exclusively with their own physical and psychological unconsciousness of essence. And because every form is highly unstable, they live in fear. This fear causes a deep misperception of themselves and of other humans, a distortion in their vision of the world. If some cosmic convolution brought about the end of our world, the unmanifested would remain totally unaffected by this. A Course in Miracles expresses this truth poignantly. Nothing real can be threatened. Nothing unreal exists. Herein lies the peace of God. If you remain in conscious connection with the unmanifested, you value, love, and deeply respect the manifested and every life form in it as an expression of one life beyond form. You know that every form is destined to dissolve again, and that ultimately nothing out here matters all that much. You have overcome the world. In the words of Jesus, or as the Buddha puts it, you have crossed over to the other shore. So, what are we exactly talking about here? See, यहाँ पे हम बड़ा एक, we are talking about that whatever is there around you is a space which does not, amount to anything in the sense, if you want to think about it, or if you want, it can amount to a lot of things. But yes, we need to be aware and we need to be connected to the space around us. जो भी हमारे साथ है, all, because ultimately the goal of us in terms of our journey in spiritual enlightenment is about connecting with that source which is within. But अगर हम उस connection को और strong करना चाहते हैं in terms of, rather than these external influences, all these manifested forms affecting us, we need to be one with the unmanifested. We need to be one with the form. And in order to remain with the form, we come back to a basic realization of being in the now with a feeling of surrender and accepting it as it is. Because जहां हम एक manifested form के साथ एक connection में जब हम आना शुरू करते हैं, वहां पे माइंड, वहां पे ईगो, वहां पे एक्सपेक्टेशंस, वहां पे जजमेंट, हर चीज वापस आना शुरू होती है. But when we go deep and we just trying to make a connection, a conscious connection with the unmanifested, that is where you are in a true state of, love and compassion, where it's a totally different experience. Because because this is something which has not been experienced by us so much. And honestly speaking, I am not the right person at this point of time to explain more on this, because yes, it's part of my own journey where I am also exploring it, rather than uh, saying that yes, I have got that connection. No, I've had momentary glimpses, but yeah, this is something which needs more explanation, probably by an experienced person on this journey, who's probably at a higher realm than probably where I am right now. So in case you have any questions on this, uh, we can address it, but yes, we will have to refer to somebody else, especially for this part. The true nature of space and time. Now consider this. If there were nothing but silence, it wouldn't exist for you. You wouldn't know what it is. Only when sound appears does silence come into being. Similarly, if there were only space without any objects in space, it wouldn't exist for you. Imagine yourself as a point of consciousness floating in the vastness of space, no stars, no galaxies, just emptiness. Suddenly, space wouldn't be vast anymore. It would not be there at all. There would be no speed, no movement from here to there. At least 2 points of reference are needed for distance and space to come into being. Space comes into being the moment the one becomes two and the twos become the 10,000 things, as Lao Tzu calls the manifested world. Space becomes more and more vast, so world and space arise simultaneously. Nothing could be without space, yet space is nothing. Before the universe came into being, before the Big Bang, if you like, there wasn't a vast empty space waiting to be filled. There was no space, as there was no thing. There was only the unmanifested, the one. When the one became the 10,000 things, suddenly space seems to be there and enabled the many to be. Where did it come from? Was it created by God to accommodate the universe? Of course not. Space is no thing, so it was never created. Get out on a clear night and look up at the sky. The thousands of stars you can see with the naked eye are no more than an infinitesimal fraction of what is there. Over 100 billion galaxies can already be detected with the most powerful telescopes. Each galaxy an island universe with billions of stars. Yet, what is even more awe-inspiring is the infinity of space itself. The depth and stillness that allows all that magnificence to be. Nothing could be more awe-inspiring and majestic than the inconceivable vastness and stillness of space. And yet, what is it? Emptiness, vast emptiness. What appears to us as space in our universe, perceived through the mind and the senses, is the unmanifested itself, externalized. It is the body of God, and the greatest miracle is this, that stillness and vastness that enables the universe to be is not just out there in space, it is also within you. When you are utterly and totally present, you encounter it as the still inner space of no mind. Within you, it is vast in depth, not in extension. Space extension is ultimately a misperception of infinite depth, an attribute of the one transcendental reality.